to Alter Your Algorithm. This is a podcast where we talk about what influences us and how we can make sure it's Jesus. I'm Jackson Wells.
Tyler Stalin.
Tyler, why don't you tell us a little bit about last week's episode?
So last week we had Mark. It was a great episode.
It was.
His passion, his purpose, his outgoing lifestyle. I'm really excited to kind of dig back into that episode. Kind of talking about not his will and not his design for life. It was God's, and you know how life would be so much different if we had what we wanted. A lot of times our lives are a lot different than what they turn out. But as you look back, man, you know that we're where we're supposed to be.
Absolutely. Verse we kept referring to last week was Colossians 3:23. It says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord." I think that's a mindset that Mark has, and I think it's a mindset that a lot of the people that we're going to have on this podcast.
Yeah, I think Payton will as well. You know, I think that verse is going to go really great with this lesson. We've had a lot of people reach out to us. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been awesome to get text messages or just people coming up to us at church and giving us encouragement about the podcast. I've enjoyed recording it. It's awesome to see the encouragement, and we're glad that it's helping other folks out. So.
Yeah, the biggest encouragement I've had from it is all walks of life and all faiths and all ages, you know, young to our more experienced people in life.
Yeah,
and it's been great being able to reach people in different seasons of life. So this week we have Payton Rogers. Payton Rogers is another good friend of mine. We're so excited to have Payton on this week. Payton, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am Payton Rogers. I'm currently the Fire Marshal and Public Information Officer at the Hopkinsville Fire Department. Had the privilege of knowing Tyler for a long time. I just met Jackson. I've enjoyed the podcast, and I appreciate you guys reaching out.
So you're the fire marshal. If we have too many people, you're the guy that shuts us down.
I'm the guy. Unfortunately, fortunately, there's a few of us that work together. Luckily, I'm not the only guy. But yeah, that's unfortunately sometimes part of it.
Yeah, gotcha. And then the slash here says Public Information Officer. What does that entail?
So there's been a really big push over the last 5-7 years on public information as far as public safety is concerned. Michael Pendleton, who lived in our community and just retired from the fire department about 5 years ago, previously had that title. And I had the privilege of working with Michael, going to job fairs and different events when I was what we call blue shirts, the non-officer firefighter, and took an interest in what he was doing. And Michael retired, and I was fortunate to have the title. So, but the dual role of my days are kind of crazy. A lot of what I do is public information. Mostly what I do is fire marshal, fire prevention stuff. But public information is social media. It's talking to the media. A lot of it is fire prevention, injury prevention, doing podcasts, kind of all encompassing, kind of like a representative of the department.
Gotcha. When I was a little kid, I remember, this is elementary school, I remember going to the most terrifying assembly I ever went to in my life. And it was when these firefighters came in their full garb and were like, "If you ever see us, don't be afraid. We're here to save you." And it was terrifying because we got these huge guys and all the gear. Do you get to do any of that?
Yeah, so we do that. We do about 125 different times a year, depending on what the event is. We try to go to all the schools throughout the year and talk to kids about that. Knowing the sound of your fire, of your smoke alarm. Getting comfortable with the lights and the sirens of the trucks and the sounds of the trucks and what our people look like with SCBAs on and mask and the breathing and how their voice changes. And so very much a part of that. Actually, as I just walked in here, I got a text about scheduling an event in a couple weeks. So I do that. I can't do that alone. I have a good team of folks to help me. And then also we use our on-duty personnel to help with that too.
Awesome.
All right, so we're going to talk about Payton's 4 F's. I think as he's grown in seasons of his life, I think these have probably reordered, which is really, I mean, that's life, right?
Yeah.
So about probably 7-8 years ago, I probably would have first thought of you as fitness, right? And then here you are, you're married, you have a kid and, family, right?
Right.
I don't know him as much as we were talking before the podcast and his faith walk, but that's what we're kind of hoping to learn a little bit about now. And then now his career is fire. So you have his 4 F's: family, faith, fitness, and fire. So we're going to kind of look at some of those today and just kind of see how how those have shaped him, and how we're trying to find a balance of life, right? And then we're really going to kind of dig into that fire side, just to, how we prepare for life's trials. And, I think as a firefighter, you probably had to be pretty prepared for anything at any point. And that's life. So what can we learn from firefighters training and things of that nature? So we're kind of excited about that. Tell us a little bit about, let's start back at your training that you probably had for a firefighter first. I know there's some tests and stuff like that. So your current gig is a little different, but just kind of walk us through that foundation of day, like maybe a day-to-day fireman.
So starting even from a recruits go through 300 hours now. It was 400 hours when I was going through it. Still very intensive. What we do at the department is oftentimes take people that have no background in fire and EMS, and we bring them in and we train them to be excellent EMS providers, excellent firefighters. And so it's a 300-hour academy. You learn everything from tying knots to how to open a nozzle to how to properly rescue one of your fellow firefighters and get them out of a building. You learn how to not be afraid of fire, what it looks like, what the heat feels like, and we try our best to pair folks in a controlled environment for the real world. So when that bell rings, they're ready to go.
Mm-hmm. I like that. It reminds me of church. It reminds me of, like, we come to church, each person is going through something different, but we come in hopes that we will be prepared. We know that Satan's going to be throwing darts at us, so it makes sense to be as prepared as you possibly can. And you're not going to be able to anticipate everything. I'm sure you're not able to cover every scenario, right, but being able to cover most of them is probably nice. All right, you've said that family and faith are central to who you are. How has your faith shaped the way you lead your family and navigate your career?
It's definitely challenged it here recently in the last 3 years when I became a father. Something that Tyler and I often talked about before that happened, how I thought that would never happen. I met my beautiful wife, 10 or so years ago, and we've been married for almost 5 and have a 3-year-old. And I think when you become a father, especially to a little girl like I have, just little girls are something else. Tyler knows that too with Caroline. But it opens your eyes a little bit more, and it has challenged me to kind of get in the Word a little bit more, and be the husband and the father that I should be. I guess when times get tough, you're irritable, you had a long day. We can't take that out on a little girl that just wants to play, or play with Barbies or whatever. So yeah, it's challenging.
In your job as a firefighter, you're oftentimes the first person that someone in distress is going to be interacting with, right?
Typically, yeah.
And so as a father, I'm not one, but I imagine that it's sort of like that. As soon as she enters the world, she's in distress, like she's crying. You and your wife are the first two people that she sees. And when your faith is strong, when you have that foundation in Christ, you realize, okay, He's giving me wisdom. He's giving me tools to take care of this thing, and this thing is a human, and I love her. It's a pretty cool thing.
It is, and how it's kind of navigated, my career as well is, early on when I first started, I would pray for a quiet night. We have this bunk room. It's kind of like a barracks in a way. We're all kind of bunking there together, and I would sit in the bed and I would pray. Whatever comes out, I hope it's something that's not crazy or nothing at all. Maybe it oftentimes was not that way. We were usually up all night, it seemed like. But I found myself talking to God more at work than I had maybe previously done before I started the job, in a different kind of way, maybe. But I think the job has kind of grown me closer in a lot of different ways.
Well, I can imagine it. As a firefighter, it's tough. I have an uncle who would remind us, Jackson, don't speed. I've seen so many accidents, and it was as bad as it was because people were going fast. He would tell us these stories about people that got hurt or killed that just, he didn't want that for us, and so he was protecting us. I can't imagine the stuff that you've seen and how it's affected people that they loved. And that's got to be tough, and it's got to be tough on you too. And I can see how that there's like a sink or swim kind of moment in your faith where it's like, how is all of this bad stuff happening? and that can really damage people's faith. But you also have all of this bad stuff is happening, but through it, God can heal. And whenever people adopt that mindset, a lot of good can come out of it. There's a lot of influence that you can have.
Yeah, and I'll tell a quick story. About that is early on in my career, we were sitting down for lunch, and we had just sat down and ordered our lunch, and got a call for a person that was not breathing. So we, obviously jump in the truck real quick. We go over to the house, and this individual had been deceased for some time. And I had the fortunate, unfortunate role of notifying the family, like, this person has passed. And I remember how surreal that was. And then, after we run the call, we went back to lunch. And I remember that was my first kind of moment, doing something like that. And I want to say an opportunity, but a tender moment with a family that, just lost someone. But we have to go back. We have to have some sense of normalcy. How do you eat lunch after that? How do you go back and just get ready for the next call and continue on? So I experienced that. I know there's 100 other odd folks here that I work with that have experienced that too. And so telling someone that story that hasn't walked those same steps can oftentimes be shocking.
Yeah.
And so luckily now we have a lot of mental health experts that we call on, and we have a full-time chaplain that works with us that has walked those steps with us. And so our people that experience that on a daily can pop in and kind of debrief. It has tremendously helped us all. Even though I'm not on that side of things anymore, him and I still have a lot of conversations. We had one last week.
Important to have those conversations.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I love kind of what you're saying here, and I've seen that, as you've changed seasons of life, trying to leave work at home, you have to, right?
Yeah.
And you have to, whenever you come home, you got to be present. And you're walking your dog in the morning. You're walking Channing. Like, I love where you are now in your career, to where you're not on 24 and 48. Or off. On 24, off 48. Like, you have a normal type of job to where you can focus on some of the right things. I mean, it's got to be tough to be a firefighter, and it's a calling.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
I know it requires physical endurance, and you and I go back to we've had lots of competition.
We have
lots of friendly competitions, and lots of we've pushed each other and things like that. And I know 5 years ago I was in a different stage of life. You're catching up to that.
Yeah.
So I know you've changed mentality over time, but you still train spiritually and physically. So how do you do that on a daily basis to make sure that you stay ready? Because I mean, it's not you don't have an easy job still now, right? So you still see things. So how do you make sure that you're taking care of things at work, but also being present at home?
It's a tough balance. When I was on shift, I would, our girls work 7A to 7A. When you're driving home in the mornings, a lot of folks are driving to work. And so you get to the stoplight. I remember thinking, like, this person next to me has no idea what happened in our city overnight. They're going to their job and probably completely oblivious to what I did, what other folks did. You had that 2 days to kind of rest and recover. And early on, it was 4 days. 2 days was not enough. But, like you talked about seeing my morning routine. I'm very routine in kind of what I do. I get up at 5:30 every day, and I kind of have a moment where I make breakfast and I have a cup of coffee, just myself, when everybody in my house is asleep, just me and the dog pretty much. And I think that kind of sets the caliber for the day for me, because even though my job is kind of routine now, we still don't really know what's going to happen. I could have a plan going in, and as soon as I get there, things change. And it's the same for a lot of my coworkers that are on the other side of the operations. But a routine, I feel like, really helps us. It helps me, at least, to kind of stay focused. And then at the end of the day, before I come home, I usually take 10, 15, 20 minutes in my office, and I just kind of don't do anything work-related. And so when I come home, I can be present. It doesn't always happen that way. The phone continues to ring. The emails continue to come through. I do my best. My wife might say different, but I do my best to not answer and especially answer emails and never answer the phone. Yeah.
When I was a kid, my favorite passage, we had a church camp, and this was the theme verse, and I think it talking about a routine for physical fitness, but also spiritual fitness. We want to be in the best shape that we can be so that we can handle what Satan's going to try and throw at us. But it's 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24 through 26. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. What you're talking about is you have this discipline that you have so that when you go home to your family, you are, like you said, you're able to be present. You're having to discipline yourself to do those things. We have to do that spiritually as well. We have to be aware of what we might succumb to, and with the theme of alter your algorithm, we have to change the things that maybe we aren't being spiritually fit on to an exercise that helps us meditate and overcome those things. Firefighting is a unique job. Not everybody can just sign up and do it. It's a calling. It's something that you feel compelled. You want to help people. You make that decision to do it, and you have to commit. How did you know that was the path that you were going to go on? How did you know that that's what you were being led to do?
I have a really unique way how I got here. I guess you have to kind of go back to, I was probably 11 or 12 years old, and my uncle lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and we were flying to Phoenix, and we visited him, and we were flying home, and our seat next to us was a fireman, and he had his helmet, and I remember sitting next to him and talking about that, and I asked him why he had his helmet, and he was flying from Phoenix to the World Trade Centers. This was October of 2001, and he was flying up there to assist in the search and rescue efforts. I remember seeing this fella, and he had the coolest mustache, like a thick gray mustache, and he had the coolest leather helmet, and he let me put the helmet on, and I think that was probably my first core memory that I remember of looking up to someone like that. You know, I would go to high school, I grow up, I go to college. I went to, I don't know how many, 4 different colleges. Finally graduated college and thought I kind of wanted to do a corporate job. Moved to Nashville, and it just I wasn't very fulfilled at all. And I knew that fairly quickly, but I just uprooted everything and invested. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stay a year. And the whole time I just kept thinking, this is not what I'm meant to do. So I ended up coming back here. I knew that I wanted to pursue firefighting, and I wanted to do it in my hometown. And I moved back here, took a job at the school as a teacher for a year, waiting for a process to open. Finally, a process opened. I applied, was able to get hired the first go, which is pretty unheard of in the firefighting world. You usually have to interview several different times and try, and was able to get picked up the first time, which I was very thankful for because I was not meant to be a teacher. At least in this educational setting, that was that. But I just started in 2018, and the first day I think I knew, okay, I'm where I need to be. It hasn't felt like a job since that day. I get to work with a lot of really smart people. I'm very fortunate that it all worked out to do it here.
That's pretty awesome.
We have a really good fire department here.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing that, I remember a lot of that. I remember we had several conversations, and it was kind of a time I was like, man, we need to get more people like Payton back in town, and I was excited that worked out.
That was neat.
So being a firefighter, like, it's one thing for you to train and you to be prepared, but like, you're not the only one fighting fire, right? You have to have help in that. Sometimes, like, you're risking your life, and sometimes you have somebody else that's there with you. So tell me a little bit about how you have to have a trust in your team and how you got to make sure that you guys all have each other's back.
Yeah, you build that in the academy. So our academy was about 9 weeks long, which is fairly short, again, in fire department standards, and it's very rushed, 12-hour days. PT starts at 6:30 every day. You get through that, and you learn to develop that trust with your brothers and sisters that are in that academy with you, and then you kind of get split up. You kind of get to different shifts and different stations, and you lose those brothers and sisters you had in the academy that you develop this good rapport with and this good trust with. You have to create that with the folks that are already on shift. Let's kind of say a quick story. After I got promoted to lieutenant, which is kind of the officer of the station who rides in the front seat of the fire truck, kind of oversees that first line personnel. We had a fire. It was 2 or 3 in the morning. I was dead asleep. Bell goes off. We wake up. I kind of felt like I woke up as we were going into the door of this building. The whole, there's a fire somewhere. Smoke is banked down to the floor. We really couldn't see it. We had to use a thermal imaging camera. And my partner that night was one of my academy brothers, Brandon Isbell. That I remember you're amped up. Your heart rate's 160, 200, and I remember like Brandon tapping me and saying, "Hey, I got you. I'm back here." And we push in. Brandon has the thermal imaging. We're trying to find the fire, and it's loud, and like again, you can't see your hand in front of your face. And as we're pushing in, we almost get to where we think it is. Brandon finds it on the tick, and we extinguish it, and then it gets even darker than it already was. And after that, there's a wall of boxes that ignited on our back that were behind us, our escape out of this building. And our command that was on the scene that night was telling everybody to get out, to get out. I remember us exiting out of the building and being so thankful when we had a second to kind of breathe, and after it was all kind of over and was coming down, how thankful that Brandon was there, because we went through 9 weeks together, and he was at a different station, and I didn't get to work with him very much until that moment. I think that might have been the first time we were ever partners on the truck.
It's crazy.
I was just so thankful he was there, and everything went great. Nobody got injured, and we were able to do the job that we needed to do. But it's funny how that worked out. A bad situation, it could have been a bad situation. Luckily, it was avoided, and I think a lot of that is because Brandon and I could trust each other. I kind of knew what he was going to do before he did it, and all of our guys kind of train on that. They try to predict what each person's going to do, what tool they're going to grab, how they're going to react in a situation. We'd be kind of trained on that. So trust is arguably the biggest foundation, I think, of our job.
Well, you have to work together, and I think something that spiritually we have to change is isolation. We try to do our walk with God by ourselves sometimes, and that's something that we need to be aware of, and we need to change. Ecclesiastes 4:9 says, 2 are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. We need somebody there with us. We need that brotherhood. Be aware of what your brother can do, because maybe, just maybe, they've gone through something that you haven't before. They know how to get through it because maybe they had somebody before them show them how. It's so important that we're aware of people that are looking out for us. It's aware that we are looking out for people, and just the openness to help is mindset that we need to be okay with receiving.
Yeah. I love that verse, and I love the story. I can't help but think, as like you said, our walk, you got to surround yourself with people that are trying to go in the same direction. And then, the iron sharpens iron, but sometimes that's misunderstood. You can't sharpen iron without a little bit of friction. So you need somebody, one, who has your back, but two, who will tell you and step up and say, hey man, you're going down the wrong path. And you have to, I'm sure that's the same thing in firefighting. If somebody's messing around and not paying attention or not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you got to be willing to kind of, get into them a little bit and say, hey, we're going this way. And I think that's the same thing in life. You have to have those people, not just yes men around you. You have to have those people that are willing to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Call you out.
Yeah.
Like strippers call you out. You mentioned earlier the value of having somebody on staff, the chaplain, who you're able to go to and talk to. Share with us a little bit, because I think this is also pervasive in society in general, but the awareness of mental health and how that has been brought up in firefighting.
It is a very progressive thing for a department to have a chaplain on staff. A lot of them have them on call, or maybe they're PRN, or they just come in during critical incident debriefings or something. With ours, having an office and being right down the hall, he's in charge of uniforms for everyone. So if someone's having a hard time, they could say, hey, they can make up something that, I need to get a t-shirt, or I need to exchange my hat. Okay, go see Nathan. They can go over there and have a 20-30 minute conversation. Nobody has to know about. Everything is kept close to the vest, but it has, I think, improving our department tenfold. Previously, we didn't have anything like this. We would bring in outside agencies, and what we were finding was when we were telling how getting everything out and talking about this call, we ended up kind of being a therapist, and those folks on the other side that were supposed to be helping us were kind of like, I don't know if I can listen to some of the things that we were talking about. I had one of those calls early on in my career where it was kind of that kind of shock call, and I remember going back to the station. Nobody said a word in the truck. We get back, and we pour a cup of coffee, and they said, "Okay, let's go wash the trucks." I remember thinking, like, I don't even know what just happened. I need to process this for a minute. I can't go back to work, immediately jump back into it. And sometimes we have to, but if you have an opportunity to debrief with someone that's trained in it, and our chaplain, Nathan Miller, he's, like I said earlier, he's walked the walk. He's a paramedic. He's a fireman. He's been a fireman, and he's also a pastor on.
I feel like I think I actually met Nathan Miller earlier this school year.
You might have.
Sure.
Yeah. He pastors a church in Cadiz, lives here in Hopkinsville, but he's walked the same steps as our people are walking. So when we're talking about things that we're experiencing or talking about the feelings maybe we're going through, Nathan has likely felt those same things that our folks had. And before we brought Nathan over, we had a really close call where we had a kind of an inter-department crisis, and we didn't really know what to do. So Nathan came over within 24 hours. Hey, you're going to have an office here. You're going to start on days tomorrow if you want it. And he absolutely wanted it. It has improved our department morale. It's proven the mental health of our people. Our people are more prepared to make those calls and to intervene when they're called upon, I think, because of the work that he's done.
Absolutely. Well, as a person who lives in Hopkinsville, that is great to hear, knowing that our service members are like ready to go and they're okay. That's encouraging.
The statistics show that we lose more firefighters to suicide, firefighters and EMS personnel and police officers to suicide than we do on the job. To me, the statistics are a crisis, and so his work has really helped our people also stay rooted in faith and stay mentally prepared to continue doing the job.
All right, Payton, we've really enjoyed this conversation. We've learned a lot about the fire department and what goes on in daily life. We're so appreciative of you being here. So we're going to kind of finish up with ways that we can fireproof our faith. I think that's very important, just leaning into the topic that we've had today. Fires don't schedule themselves, and neither do life's trials. So there's so many things that we can do. I think the first thing that you have to do is make sure we're training daily, make sure we trust our training. That's mentally, physically, spiritually. Make sure we're taking time for ourselves, but make sure that we are leaning in on God there and support of others.
Absolutely.
You also got to trust your preparation. When the heat rises, you got to rely on your foundation of faith. So make sure that you are trusting that preparation.
Jesus is not going to lead you the wrong way, even though it might seem like, why am I coming back to Hopkinsville after living a life in Nashville and luxury? Jesus isn't going to lead you in the wrong way. The last thing is be sure to feed the right fire. We've got so many things that are vying for our attention, for our heart. Feed the right fire. Feed the training that is going to help you become spiritually stronger. And if you're not fueling yourself correctly, you're not going to be able to grow. So this week, we're going to challenge you to identify one area. We listed the 4 F's. Don't feed the fire like the actual fire. You don't want Payton showing up at your house. But faith, family, or fitness. And maybe it's all 3 of them. Evaluate those things and see, how can I improve those? How can I allow Jesus to help me improve those? And commit to strengthening one of those this week. I think it would be really good. When the heat comes your way, you'll be ready.
Well, and I like to think you don't want any of these to be lukewarm, right?
No.
We don't want a lukewarm marriage. We don't want to be a lukewarm father. You definitely don't want to be a lukewarm Christian or have lukewarm faith. So let's have fire in all these. And it kind of goes back to Mark's episode last week. Just be all in.
Yeah.
In some of these when it's time to be all in that particular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us who we got next week.
Next week, we have Dior Curtis. He is Christian County High School's boys basketball coach. He's just finished up a great run in the district tournament. So we look forward to having him on, and it's going to be another great episode.
I'm excited to meet him. If you are a listener, first-time listener, we hope that you subscribe. If you've been listening for a while and you like what you're hearing, leave us a review. Share this with someone who you might think would be interested in hearing this message. Be sure to reach out to Tyler or I. We love the feedback. If you've got an idea we would love to hear it. So as we close, I'll say a prayer, and then the podcast is yours. God, we come before you now, thanking you for Payton, the work that he does in this community. I just ask that you bless him and keep him safe, as well as all the other service members that we have here in Hopkinsville. We're thankful for the work they do and the protection they provide. Father, help us grow in the way that we love our families. Help us grow in our faith so that we can become closer to you. Help us to train so that we are more like Jesus. Be with us this week as we go and do the things we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you for listening to Alter Your Algorithm.